So, namaste and good evening to everybody. Welcome, dear brothers and sisters, to today's session of Mahatma Letters. And as you know, we are studying this Mahatma letter, chronological letter number 111, which is being directed by brothers C.A. Shinde, who is the international lecturer, international speaker for the Theosophical Society. So, let us begin this session with the universal invocation. O hidden life, vibrant in every atom, O hidden light, shining in every creature, O hidden love, embracing all in oneness, may each who feels himself as one with thee know he is also one with every other. So, welcome back. I welcome Brother C.A. Shinde to begin today's session. Sir, you are not audible. Please unmute yourself. Sir, I am still not able to hear you. I request everyone to please remain with us. Professor Shinde is probably having some technical difficulties and he will join us soon.
Am I audible now?
Yes, sir, you're audible. Yes.
Again, I started on the mobile back.
Okay.
So,
No
okay,
problem.
we will start immediately. This is very critical point. So, brothers and sisters, this Mahatma letter number 11 we are dealing with, and this is the part 3. In this part 3, Mahatma is really disheartened by the comments, those who have not understood the core teaching of this doctrine. And he explains in many letters also. Usually, Chela-ship unveils the inner man and draws forth the dormant vices as well as dormant virtues, which are latent vices, begets active sins, and is often followed by insanity. As those they come to the surface, those evils which are, or those are the latent vices, they make them insanity. So Mahatma says, be pure, be virtuous, and lead a holy life. Then you will be protected. That is what Mahatma assures. But also he assures, remember, he who is not as pure as a young child, better leave jealousy. This is what strictly Mahatma says. We will read now this part 3 from his letter directly. I think Vibhaji, you can focus the first slide. The more one reads, yes, the more one reads such speculations as those of Messrs. Rhys Davids and Lilly, etc., the less can one bring himself to believe that the unregenerated Western mind can ever get at the core of our abstruse doctrine. This is what, as I said earlier, Mahatma is disheartened by their comments and who failed to understand the core teaching of the Mahatma. So here, Mahatma K discusses about Rhys Davids. Who is this Rhys Davids? Rhys David is the founder of Pali Text Society, and also he was professor of Pali and Buddhist literature at University of London. So yet, hopeless as their cases may be, it would appear well worth the trouble of testing the intuitions of your London members, of some of them at any rate, by half expounding through you one or two mysteries and leaving them to complete the chain themselves. See, half knowledge is always dangerous, but whatever they have heard, and from that, let them carry on. That is what Master says. And we can test their intuitions, especially of the members of the London Lodge, who are half expounding through you one or two mysteries and leaving them to complete the chain themselves. Here, whatever AP Senate has disclosed certain mysteries, they are not completely understood, but they are acting as if they have understood everything, and from that, they have completed the chain themselves. But let them test their intuition. And here, Arthur Lilly, a British soldier who wrote about the Buddhism also. So, Rhys Davids and Lilly, both of them, they can bring to believe that the unregenerated Western mind can ever get at the core of our abstruse doctrine. So what is needed is regeneration of the mind. Otherwise, it is not possible to understand what they want to convey us. Next slide shows, shall we make Mr. Rhys Davids as our first subject and show that indirectly, as he has done it, yet it is himself who strengthens the absurd ideas of Mr. Lilly, who fancies to have proved his belief in a personal God in ancient Buddhism. So he asks, shall we take Mr. Rhys Davids as our first subject? Yes, he has tried, and Buddhists have come on the Buddhism, from the ancient Buddhism, about the personal God. This whole letter is explaining what is this Avalokiteshwar, what is this Ishvara and Paramatma, whether personal God or universal God, etc. They are explaining further. But what Rhys Davids has said now, let us carry it on and we'll see further. Mr. Rhys Davids' Buddhism is full of the sparkles of our most important esotericism. So whatever Rich David says, it has got something from our esotericism, but always as it would seem beyond not only his reach, but apparently even his powers of intellectual perception. So whatever he has understood, it is definitely good for his intellectual perception, but it is beyond that intellectual perception to get the core of their understanding. So the next slide says, in the next slide, what Mahatma wants to say. Vibhaji, next slide, you please. In the next slide says, let us avoid absurd metaphysics and also avoid its inventions, because he creates unnecessary difficulties and falls headlong into inextricable confusion. So he is like the Cape settlers who lived over the diamond mines without suspecting it. I shall only instance the definition of Avalokiteshvara. What is that? On page number 203, he refers. So there we find the author saying that to which any occultist seems a palpable absurdity. So what you have understood about the Avalokiteshvara, it is, you are not understood completely. He gives the example. It is like a Cape settlers who lived over the diamond mines without suspecting the diamond. They are sitting on the diamond mines, but they don't know what is beneath their minds. So this is what I shall only instance the definition of Avalokiteshvara. There we find the author saying that to which any occultist seems a palpable absurdity. Of course, to explain this, in fact, as we know now from secret doctrine about Avalokiteshvara, secret doctrine speaks of Avalokiteshvara as the 7 Dhyan Buddhas. These 7 Dhyan Buddhas are the Avalokiteshvara, and Avalokiteshvara, he creates Logos. And from the secret doctrine, we identify as Manas Putras, or in Hindus, they are Prajapati or Kumaras. In Jews, they call him as Elohim. And in Christianity, they call archangels. So what secret doctrine speaks of 7 Dhyani Buddhas? He says, 5 are manifested through human Buddhas, and last 2 will come in the 6th and 7th root races. And from them emanated the Dhyani Buddhas, who govern the globe of planetary change. So important work is of these Dhyani Buddhas. 7 Dhyani Buddhas, 5 of them are manifested through human Buddhas, and 2 will come in 6th and 7th race. So in the next slide, he explains. Before that, we must understand what Master Cage want to say. We may note especially that it is when accurately interpreted in one sense, the divine self perceived or seen by self, the Atman or 7th principle at its Mayavic distinction from the universal source, which becomes the subject of perception by the individuality centered in Buddhi. And this individuality, not the personality, individuality gets centered into the buddhi, then it is one sense the divine self perceived or seen by self. So this Avalokiteshvara, in one sense, he says, the divine self perceived or seen by self, the Atman or seventh principle. Who sees to this Avalokiteshvara? Our own seventh principle can see it. And it is only then Mayavic distinction will vanish. So Avalokiteshvara implies the seventh universal principle as the object perceived by the universal buddhi. That universal buddhi, you may call it as the mind also, manasa principle, or intelligence, which is the synthetic aggregation of all the Dhyan Chohans. See, this is what the explanation is given. And KH discusses some misunderstanding by several Buddhists, especially the well-known Thomas William Rhys Davids, who is the professor of Pali and Buddhist literature at University College in London, whose work on Buddhism are still often referred or cited. The Mahatma seems disheartened because of this or such commentators who fail to understand the core of abstruse doctrine. That is what in the last. So he cites particular the definition of Avalokiteshvara, quoting Rhys Davids, and then discussing the term in some details. It is when correctly interpreted, in one sense, as I said, the divine self perceived or seen by self, the Atman, the seventh principle. And the Mahatma continues with meaning of Avalokiteshvara in both Christian and Chinese contexts. The entire exposition needs careful study, and it is not easily summarized. The student may also wish to explore the concept of Avalokiteshvara in recently published text.
Sir, may I please check with you which slide number you are on?
Yeah, this is the slide number. Next slide, correct. The name Avalokiteshvara, which means the Lord who looks down from on high.
Okay.
Then this is a purely metaphysical invention. So when we are curious to know Avalokiteshvara, and this name Avalokiteshvara, which means the Lord who looks down from on high, then this is a purely metaphysical invention, he says. It is the curious use of the past particle passive. Saying only looks down from high, he says it is a curious use of the past particle passive. But in true sense, Avalokiteshvara, he says in an active sense, is clearly evident from the translation into Tibetan and Chinese. Now they are saying that it means the Lord who looks down from on high, or as he kindly explains further, the spirit of Buddhas present in the church is to completely reverse the sense. So when they understand Avalokiteshvara as the spirit of, they say, spirit of the Buddhas present in the church, it is really absurd. The spirit of the Buddhas present in the church is completely reverse the sense. And it is because how can one omnipresent universal spirit be in church rather than in the temple of nature? So we say This Avalokiteshvara or Ishvara is the highest in nature, not only confined to church or temple. When Atman is in man as seventh principle, how can omnipresent universe spirit be in church only? That is what Master wants to point out. In the next slide, he explained. We'll take next slide. It is equivalent to saying Mr. Sinet looks down from on high. What they are saying, looks down from on high. Because the people which are explained in the Theosophist by Evo Hume, that is called Fragment of Occult Truth on the British Theosophist or Theosophical Society, where they say Sinet is looking down from on high, whereas it is the latter that looks up to Mr. Sinet, or rather to his fragments, as the, in their case, only possible expression and culmination of the knowledge sought for. So this is all confusion, but they are trying their best to catch through intuition some insights, and they are assigning definition to Avalokiteshvara as one who looks from the above. And this also they assign to persons who are in the high post, like Senate. That is what Evo Hume has written in Fragments of Occult Truth. This is no idle simile and defines the exact situation. In short, Avalokiteshvara literally interpreted means the Lord that is seen. The Lord that is seen, Ishvara, implying moreover, rather the objective than the noun, lordly, self-existent. It is a lordliness, not Lord, not person. It is that quality of lordliness that is Avalokiteshvara. Lord that is seen, Ishvara, implying moreover, rather the adjective than the noun, lordly, self-existent, lordliness, not the Lord. Very clearly they say. So in the next slide, it is, when correctly interpreted, in one sense, the divine self perceived or seen by self, the Atman or seventh principle, rid of its Mayavic distinctions from its universal source. So this is what we can understand. It is when correctly interpreted, in one sense, the divine self. Who is this Avalokiteshvara? He is the divine self, but he can be perceived or seen by self, the Atman, or the seventh principle. When that seventh principle is free from all Mayavic distinctions from its universal sources, which becomes the object of perception for, and by the individuality centered in buddhi, which is the sixth principle, something that happens only in the highest state of samadhi. Then we can go from the sixth principle to seventh principle. And what, when the individuality is really centered into the buddhi, that can happen only in the state of samadhi. This is applying it to the microcosm. So man is microcosm. Cosmos is the whole universe. And man is the microcosm. And this microcosm means man is, he must have a certain divine affirmation to center his individuality into the buddhi. What are those affirmations needed? One who is on the spiritual path must know when he is studying about the Avalokiteshvara. So those divine affirmations, number one, he himself decide, I embrace my intuition and I trust on the guidance that comes from the within. We know the guidance comes from the within. So I must embrace my own intuition and on guidance that comes from within. That is first affirmation. Second affirmation, I use my unique strength as a source of power. So here again, self-reliance. I use my unique strength as a source of power. Third affirmation, I tune myself with the cycles of nature and of my own body. So the soul incarnates, our soul grows, incarnation, life after life. And humanity grows, civilization after civilization. So you must tune with these cycles of nature. And these cycles of nature are cycles of my own body, in the sense, cycles of bodies of soul. And the fourth affirmation, I love myself and all others as unique monads. And last, I aspire to become the pupil of the master with living faith in them. These are the different affirmations a real spiritual aspirant should have work for that. So this is the applying it to the microcosm. Man is microcosm and he must have certain divine affirmation. This is what I want to explain here. Next slide we go. In the other sense, next. In the other sense, Avalokiteshvara implies the seventh universal principle, as I said before. It is the subject perceived by the universal buddhi, that is mind, or the intelligence, which is the synthetic aggregation of all the dhyan chohans, as of all other intelligences, whether great or small, that ever were, are, or will be. So what we say, universal intelligence, that universal intelligence works in everything, whether in small or in great. They ever were, are, and will be. Nor is it the spirit of Buddhas present in the church, but the omnipresent universal spirit in the temple of nature. Omnipresent universal spirit in the temple of nature. In one case, and the seventh principle, the Atman in the temple of man. So human body is the temple, and as Lord Krishna or Christ says, they are seated in the heart of all beings. So if you understand this, then we can see what a great meaning is for the Avalokiteshvara. I would like to, it is not easy to understand all this, because it won't come. When we say the Buddhas, what needs to be understood is, there are 4 families of Buddhas. In Buddhist, it is said, there is Lotus family of Buddhas, Karma family of the Buddhas, Vajra family of the Buddhas, Jewel family of the Buddhas. And this Avalokiteshvara, who is the Buddha of compassion, belongs to Lotus family. Amitabh, who has a divine speech and love, his peculiarity, Amitabh, Buddha Amitabh, and Buddha Avalokita, both are belonging to the Lotus family. What is the peculiarity of this Lotus family? The peculiarity of this Lotus family, the energy used, whatever energy we use for greed, can become the compassion of Avalokiteshvara. So greed energy can become converted into Avalokiteshvara. Greed can become the compassion. So this lotus family, we all can use energies which by meditation can be turned over into qualities of the true self. Then the karma family of Buddha, there is Buddha Amog Siddhi, divine action, and Buddha Maitreya, who has a strong will. So in them, the energy used for envy and ambition have become the will of Maitreya. That is the, we say, friendship or Maitreya. So this is the karma family. Then Vajra family Buddha, Akshobhya divine body, Buddha Akshobhya divine body, and Samata Buddha, the O. In them, the energy used for anger and hatred can become the motive of Samata Buddha. And lastly, the jewel family is the wisdom, Manjushri, and Ratna Sambhava, Buddha. So divine godness and beauty. So in them, the energy used for pride can become the wisdom of Manjushri. So once we have this idea, then perhaps we can convince ourselves how these 7 Buddhas and great ones, and what is the relation with the Avalokita. So the next slide says, Mr. Rhys Davids, next slide. Yes. Mr. Rhys Davids might have at least remembered the familiar simile made by the Christian, the Kabbalists, that is the Paul, Christian Kabbalist. Know ye not that ye are the temple of God, and that the Spirit of God dwells in you. This is the maxim. Know ye not that ye are the temple of God, and that the Spirit of God dwells in you. And thus avoided to have made a mess of the name. So you are the temple of the God. You don't have the body. Soul has the body in that sense. So though as a grammarian, he detected the use of the past particle passive, yet he shows himself far from an inspired Panani in overlooking the true cause and saving his grammar by raising the hue and cry against metaphysics. In the next slide, he says, I am going in a hurry. And yet the quotes Beals. So here, Samuel Beal was an engineer or Englishman who translated Buddhist scripture from Chinese to English. And therefore he quotes Beal's Catena as his authority for the invention, when in truth, this work is perhaps the only one in English that gives an approximately correct explanation of the word. At any rate, on the page number 374, he refers, self-manifested. So whatever we say is the self-manifested. How? It is asked. And then he answered, speech or walk, whatever it is. This what it means, mystic personification of speech. He was regarded as the son or the manifestation of the eternal self, and was adored under the name of Avalokiteshvara, the manifested God. But still, they say, let them be understood. Let them be under delusion that the real Christ, every critical, is. So this, the mystic voice, let them be under delusion that the real Christ, every critical, is walk. This, the VACH walk, is the mystical voice. How is self manifested? By speech or walk. Manifestation of the eternal self, and was adored under the name of Avalokiteshvara. So next slide shows, this shows as clearly as can be. This shows as clearly as can be that Avalokiteshvara is both the unmanifested Father and the manifested Son. The latter means unmanifested Father, proceeding from and identical with the other, namely the Parabrahma or Jivatman. The universal and the individualized seventh principle, the passive and the active, the latter the word logos, the verb. See, there are two individuals. One is the unmanifest, second is the manifest. One is the subjective, another is the objective. And that need to be understood. And during those days when the letter came, Mahatma letters were written, our knowledge was not so much developed. Now we have developed so much. So he says, call it by whatever name. Only let these unfortunate deluded Christians know that the real Christ of every Christian is the walk, is the mystic personification of speech or mystic voice. While the man Jeshu was but a mortal like any of us, and adept more by his inherent purity and ignorance of real evil than by what he had learned with his initiated rabbis and the already means at that period, fast degenerating Egyptian hierophants and priests. So whatever mystical voice they name as Hawk, call it whatever name. Only let these unfortunate deluded Christians know that the real Christ of every Christian is walk. And while the man Jeshu was but a mortal like any of us, again and again they want to explain there are subjective and objective parts within us. Subjective part, what we call Atman, soul, or whatever it is. And the objective part is the personality, mind, and feelings, thought, feelings, and action, all that. And here he gives walk, they have come, what he had learned with his initiated rabbis. Because these deluded Christians, they know it by his inherent purity and ignorance of real evil. They came to know this knowledge by the adept who are inherent purity and ignorance of real evil, than by what he had learned with his initiated rabbis. So all these are names, rabbis, Egyptian hierophant, priests, they were all initiates. And whatever they have learned from the initiate, Let them be with that thing. Hierophant, we come in our reading as the Egyptian priest, where they place themselves not to think and feel evil of anyone, and realize the fact that his talent is the God's gift. His popularity is the society's gift. His pride is self-made. So they become careful about the pride. Such kind of sensitivity is among them, and therefore reverence to all life is developed. So if one realizes man is expression of God and God is reality of man. So when we come to this such kind of personal God, so God, man himself is in a process of becoming God. He is the expression of God. Therefore, God must be reality to him. Then in the next slide, a great mistake is also made by Professor Beale, who says this name Avalokiteshvara in Chinese took the form of Quan Shen Yin. So yin and yang, you must be knowing male, female parts. So Chinese, they say they took the form of Quan Shen Yin. And the divinity worshipped under that name was generally regarded as the female. So Quan Shen Yin, or the universally manifested voice, is active male and must not be confounded with Quan Yin or Buddhi, the spiritual soul, the sixth principle, and the vehicle of the Lord. He makes us clear. And the last slide, we will read and finish it. It is the Quan Yin, that is the female principle or the manifested passive, manifesting itself to every creature in the universe in order to deliver all men from the consequences of sin, as rendered by Beale this once quite correctly in page 383. While Quan Shen Yin, the son identical with his father, is the absolute activity, hence having no direct relation to objects of sense, is passivity. So this is what I want to bring before you today. But let us also see what I want to say. The Avalokiteshvara, it is a Sanskrit word. He is the, as it is seen in Mahatma letter, the onlooking Lord. But it is in exoteric perception. He is the actually Padmapani, lotus bearer and lotus born, the first divine ancestor of the Tibetans, the complete incarnation of Avatara of Avalokiteshvara. But this is all in exoteric sense. But in esoteric philosophy, Avaloki means onlooker. He is a silent watcher. He is the higher self. And Padmapani is the higher ego, Manasa. And therefore the mystic mantra is given. And that mantra is Om Mani Padme Hum. I think our Vibhaji has given much lecture on this mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum. Is specially used to invoke their joint help. The other popular concept of Avalokiteshvara is the incarnate he incarnates many times on earth as spiritual guide. So esoteric interpretation or interpreters are, he is the esoteric interpreter or guide of even believers. The esoteric interpretation sees in him the whole logos, both celestial and human. Therefore, when the Yogacara school declared Avalokiteshvara as Padmapani to be a Dhyani Buddhas or Dhyani Buddha Sattva, Amitabh Buddha in the world of form, both being one in the heaven and the other on the earth. So once we understand this Avalokiteshvara, he is the Ishvara. So I hope I tried to put what Mahatma wanted to explain to AP Senate. It is also, as I said in the earlier, it is a memorandum letter to AP Senate. When you study it deeply and don't get deluded like others. Thank you, Vibhaji, and thank you to all of you for giving me this opportunity. But I tried from my mobile. I don't know how far I have succeeded.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you
We
very
were able to hear very clearly, and we got all your insights which you have shared with us. Thank you so much. And now I request Sister Meenakshi ji to give us the translation in Hindi.
नमस्ते सभी को. थैंक यू सिस्टर. थैंक यू ब्रदर शिंदे जी. आज हम महात्मा लेटर नंबर 111 का अगला पार्ट ले रहे हैं. मास्टर कहते हैं कि मिस्टर रिस डेविड्स, लिली इत्यादि की ऐसी परिकल्पना को जितना ही कोई पढ़े उतना ही वह व्यक्ति सोचेगा कि अपरिपक्व पश्चिमी मन कभी भी हमारे गूढ़ सिद्धांतों के तह तक पहुंच नहीं सकता है. फिर भी आपके लंदन के कुछ सदस्यों को आपके माध्यम से कुछ एक ऐसे रहस्यों को थोड़ा बहुत समझाकर उन्हें उस श्रृंखला को स्वयं पूरा करने के लिए छोड़ देने की, उनके अंतर्बोध की परीक्षा लेना ठीक होगा. मिस्टर रिस डेविड्स ने मिस्टर लिली के बेतुके विचारों को और अधिक पुष्टि दी है, जो प्राचीन बौद्ध धर्म में पर्सनल गॉड, व्यक्ति रूपी ईश्वर में विश्वास को साबित करने की कल्पना करते हैं. मिस्टर डेविड्स का बुद्धिज्म पर किताब हमारे सबसे महत्वपूर्ण एसोटेरिसिज्म के प्रकाश से भरी है, लेकिन हमेशा की तरह यह न केवल उनकी पहुंच से परे है बल्कि उनकी बुद्धिमत्ता की शक्तियों से भी परे है. वे साउथ अफ्रीका के केप में बसे उन लोगों की तरह है जो हीरे की खदानों पर हीरो से अनभिज्ञ रहते थे. अवलोकितेश्वर की परिभाषा रिस डेविस करते हैं कि अवलोकितेश्वर यानी ऊपर से नीचे की ओर देखने वाले भगवान. मास्टर कहते हैं कि यह किसी गुह्यविद को बहुत ही बेतुका सा लगेगा. आगे मास्टर अवलोकितेश्वर के बारे में कहते हैं कि अवलोकितेश्वर का शब्दशः अर्थ है जिनका अवलोकन किया जा सके वे ईश्वर. ईश्वर का अर्थ ईश्वरत्व, स्वविद्यमान प्रभुता, भगवान नहीं. आत्मन द्वारा अनुभव की गई या अवलोकित दिव्य आत्मा. अपने सार्वभौमिक स्रोत से मायाविकता से मुक्त आत्मन या 7th प्रिंसिपल का अवलोकन करना, यह 6th प्रिंसिपल बुद्धि में केंद्रित जीवात्मा का लक्ष्य होता है. ऐसा कुछ जो केवल समाधि की सर्वोच्च अवस्था में घटित होता है. यह मनुष्य पर लागू होता है. दूसरे अर्थ में अवलोकितेश्वर यानी 7th यूनिवर्सल प्रिंसिपल की अनुभूति, यह यूनिवर्सल बुद्धि या यूनिवर्सल माइंड का लक्ष्य होता है, जो सभी ध्यान चौहानों का एकत्रीकरण है, जैसे कि सभी महान या अन्य सभी इंटेलिजेंसेस का है जो कभी थे, है या होंगे. पॉल कहते हैं कि यह जाने कि न ही यह मंदिर में स्थित बुद्ध की आत्मा है बल्कि प्रकृति के मंदिर में सर्वव्यापी परमात्मा है, और दूसरी तरह से मनुष्य रूपी मंदिर में वह सेवेंथ प्रिंसिपल यानी आत्मन है। स्पीच या वाक यह परब्रह्म की अभिव्यक्ति या सन माना जाता है, पुत्र माना जाता है, और जिसकी आराधना अवलोकितेश्वर यानी व्यक्त ईश्वर के नाम से होती थी। इस तरह यह स्पष्ट हो जाता है कि अवलोकितेश्वर यह अव्यक्त पिता और व्यक्त या प्रकट पुत्र दोनों है, और पुत्र पिता से उत्पन्न हुआ और उसके सदृश है, अर्थात परब्रह्म और जीवात्मा, सार्वभौमिक और व्यक्तित्व प्राप्त सेवेंथ प्रिंसिपल। पहला पैसिव यानी अक्रिय और दूसरा एक्टिव सक्रिय, जो शब्द है ईश्वर है। ईसाइयों के खरे मसीहा वाक है, अलौकिक वाणी है, जबकि यीशु यह हमारे जैसे ही नश्वर मनुष्य थे, जो अपने अंतर्निहित शुद्धता और रियल एविल से अनभिज्ञ होने के कारण सिद्ध योगी थे, न कि उन्होंने अपने दीक्षित रब्बियों और पहले से ही तेजी से पतित हो रहे इजिप्ट के आचार्यों और पुजारियों से सीखने की वजह से वे थे। बिल ने एक बड़ी गलती की है जो कहते हैं कि चाइनीज में अवलोकितेश्वर ने क्वान शाइन इन का रूप लिया और उस नाम से पूजी जाने वाली देवी को आमतौर पर एक स्त्री के रूप में माना जाता था। मास्टर कहते हैं क्वान शाइन इन या सार्वभौमिक रूप से व्यक्तवाणी सक्रिय पुरुष है, और इसे क्वान इन या स्पिरिचुअल सोल सिक्स्थ प्रिंसिपल बुद्धि जो आत्मन के वाहन है उससे संभ्रमित नहीं होना चाहिए। यह क्वान इन है जो फीमेल प्रिंसिपल या प्रकट निष्क्रिय है, जो ब्रह्मांड में हर प्राणी के लिए सभी मनुष्यों को पाप के परिणामों से मुक्ति दिलाने के लिए स्वयं को प्रकट करती है। यह बिल ने सही तरीके से अनुवादित किया है, जबकि क्वान शाई इन पिता के समान पुत्र पूर्णतः सक्रियता है, एब्सोल्यूट एक्टिविटी। इसलिए इंद्रियजन्य वस्तुओं से कोई संबंध न होना यह पैसिविटी है। थैंक यू। नमस्ते।
Thank you, Meenakshi ji. And now we are ready to take any questions or discussions from our participants.
Yeah,
This is a very occult topic.
Can I come in?
Yes, sir, please.
Yeah. I got this from my reading and meditation and so forth. The meaning of our Ishwar, it's the inner dweller, the real self. Our real self is the inner dweller, and our lock means location. That's why we are located within. So when we say Paramatma, Paramatma is like an ocean, and every drop is a Atma. Or if you look here, give an analogy that if you have a vessels, different colors of cups and bottles and any containers, if the water is in every one of them, the body of our individual human being is like a different cup and saucers and so forth. So this is the clothing that we have put on. We call it veil or clothing, whatever it is the indweller has put it on, and we look different colors. Africans are black and Europeans are white and Indians are brown and so forth. Are different only vessels only. So the lock is the location that the inner dweller is within that vessel.
Right. That is a very unique way, a nice way of looking at it. Yes, any other perspective? Anybody would like to share? I would like to add one thing about this term which you have mentioned. If we look at the language, Avalokiteshwar, in Sanskrit, Avlokan means to see. And since Avalokiteshwar is a Buddhist term coming from Buddhism, so whatever is in Sanskrit, the equivalent terms are there in Parakrit or Prakrit. Prakrit and Pali were namely used for Buddhism. So this term Avlokan, that is to see, that is also used in Prakrit, from where this term Avalokiteshwar comes, to see. Here the meaning of to see is the sixth principle, whether it is individual principle or cosmic principle. Because if we speak of the seventh principle, that is abstract. So it doesn't have, or rather we can say that awareness is potential in it. It is not active. But when it comes to the sixth principle, that is where awareness is active. So that is seeing, that is perceiving, direct perception. So Avalokiteshwar, according to my understanding, what I have studied in this letter, it means it is the sixth cosmic principle, which in other places is mentioned as spiritual sun, which is the source of the seven rays. And these seven rays are the hierarchies of the seven Dhyani Buddhas. So that is what Avalokiteshwar means, and he corresponds it to the upper triad in man also, because man also has Atma, Buddhi, Manas. So this Buddhi is actually Atma, Buddhi, Manas of the individual is nothing but a derivative from the cosmic upper triad. So he says temple of man and also in nature, that is in the cosmos. I think that is what I have understood from this, and thanks to my clarifying my understanding by Shindeji also.
Thank you. I am not listening properly, but I tried to listen anyway. But you have explained very nicely. No problem.
So any other sharing? We would really like people to share their views on this, because as Professor Shinde has rightly said, these letters are not very simple or easy to understand. So the more we can get more perspectives, the more light can be thrown on these principles. Yes, Sheetalji, yes.
I just wanted that Kuan Yin Shi, I have not written down that names, but three names are given. Kuan Yin and Kuan Sha Yin, and third one is this. So one is absolute, second is means the female part, Kuan Yin. Can we say it is Srishti or Maya? And third one is the man. Atman means. Am I clear? Am I clear what I wanted to say? The three names are given. Kuan Sha Yin, Kuan Yin, and so again Kuan Sha Yin is given. I think that's the name I'm not recollecting, but Kuan Sha Yin is the Avalokiteshwar or the Ishvara, and Kuan Yin, the female part, is can we say it Srishti or Maya, and the third one is the Atman or man, means Vyakta Swarup. So is it Shinde sir, can you repeat or clarify my understanding?
Shinde sir, would you like to take this question?
Last para of this letter.
Sheetalji, I think Shindeji was not able to listen clearly. He was mentioning that. I
Can
will
you
not
please?
be able to throw any light on Kuan Yin and Kuan Sha Yin. But as far as you mentioned about Atma, Atma is the seventh principle, whether in man or whether universal. We cannot
Yeah.
say that it is in man only. It is the seventh principle which is a universal principle.
Yes.
Okay, but I will not be able to tell about the Quan Shai Yin and the other term Quan Yin. That needs more reading. Actually, that goes into the Chinese philosophy and that Buddhist philosophy. So we need to have more clarity on that. But see, these are all terms which are corresponding to each other. So whether you study it in terms of Vedantic terms, which we are more familiar with, or you study it in terms of the Buddhist terms or Chinese terms, in whichever philosophy you have clarity, anyway, it is referring to the upper three principles, whether in man or in cosmos. I think you are muted, Sheetalji.
Yes.
Yes, yes. Yes,
Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Yes, Avalokiteshvara, it is nicely described in the secret doctrine.
Hmm.
That we must understand now. These are the Dhyana Buddhas, actually. So their whole energy, which becomes our synergy. That is what in modern term we can use it as the synergy. Their whole energy, 7 Buddhas or 7 Dhyani Buddhas. And secret doctrine, it makes clear that what we understand as the Manasputras or Kumaras, Hindus call them as the Prajapatis, and Jews call them as Elohim, and Christians call them as the archangels. That is what H.P. Blavatsky wanted to make it clear in secret doctrine later on. But Master K.H. has explained this, and this letter itself is the memorandum. Take care that don't come to the judgment unless your buddhi merges with the Atma. That 7th principle, what you said, then only you can understand that Paramatma, how it works. But now you remember, one is the unmanifest, other is the manifest. Both together they are working. That is what we can understand now. Because man is becoming a God. So God is the reality to man. So you call me him as the God or whatever, Paramatma or whatever it is. I think so. So the discussion, what we had is really worth. Thank you, thank you.
Thank
But
you,
my
sir.
laptop could not start. Maybe some cyber mistakes.
Thank you,
I
sir.
have started it
Thank you,
from the
Sheetalji.
smartphone.
Thank you, ma'am. And thank you, sir.
Thank you, Sheetalji.
Sir, thank you very much for today's session. And I think we will take about 2 more sessions to complete this letter. Right?
Yes.
Thank you to all the participants also. So now we can bring the session to a close with our closing prayer. Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya Om Sarvesham Swastirabhavatu Sarvesham Shantirabhavatu Sarvesham Purnam Bhavatu Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu Lokaha Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah Sarve Santu Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschit Dukha Bhag Bhavet Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Namaste and thank you all for joining us.
Namaste. Thank you and good night.
Thank you, sir.